Hello, and welcome to coverage of Grin's Gore for the custom standard format. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the Swiss round 3 match between Seismic who is playing full automation, and Plipster, who is playing Jund Mutants. So Seismic deck is based around the titular card full automation. It's 4 blue for an instant that says draw 2 cards, and then you can put any number of artifacts from your hand onto the battlefield. So Seismic is basically playing like a tempo-y, control-ish deck with... It's a weird deck to describe because it has control elements because of the instant speed nature of full automation. There are some cards that support that. But it also plays like a bunch of big artifacts to get as much value off of the full automation as possible. Meanwhile, Plipster's deck, which is Jund Mutants, really more green-red mutants splashing for Anku, is a mid-range deck which is aiming to use Lab Wrecker to destroy non-basic lands and as a result punish of what is right now a very greedy meta. It also has combos with Mercy, who is essentially a pod-type creature, and also this Evaldi's Masterpiece, who with his dash can often fetch you up a huge board before long. So right now, Plipster's going to make the first play of the game. Going to play a Garden Grafter, uploading a Gene Gorger. Uploading is a mechanic where you take a card from anywhere, your hand, library, whatever, and then its owner can pay 2 at sorcery speed to put it into their hand. It's essentially pseudo card advantage. Meanwhile, Seismic right now is just going to keep passing, can generate petal tokens on end step using Royal Domain, and otherwise no reason to run out the Blitz suit, can just pretend to have interaction instead. And then next turn has 5 mana to be able to play something, but not if Plipster shoots the Royal Domain. I think it was a bad move on Seismic's part not to use Royal Domain to create a petal in response, though, because that would let him have 5 mana next turn. For now, Seismic is stuck at 4 mana, so can't cast anything except this Witch of Shifting Waters. Could cast Witch of Shifting Waters, copy Lab Wrecker, shoot the dangerous territory, and say right back at ya. Looks like that's what Seismic is going to do. And yep, copying Lab Wrecker and just going to shoot the dangerous territory. On Plipster's end, it has no shortage of lands, and also has this Field of Ruin this turn. So it really could just drop the Field of Ruin, shoot the Royal Domain, and then just keep up Lab Wrecker and Garden Grafter as a larger board than Seismic I think that would likely be the best play. Yep, is dropping the Field of Ruin. Gonna immediately crack it, shooting the Royal Domain. Oh, and since Field of Ruin doesn't put the land onto the battlefield tapped, Plipster can actually immediately cast this Gene-Shifted Warbler. So yep, gonna run out the Gene-Shifted Warbler. I think a Mercy or I think mostly a Mercy or another Lab Wrecker is what Plipster wants to hit here. Gonna bin a Forest, Hired Hit, and Anku the Primordial off of the Gene-Shifted Warbler, and is gonna grab a Switchflit. That was only a mutant right there. Probably would have wanted to get the Anku, because in 2 turns, Anku comes down, and I don't think Seismic has any answer to it. Anyways, gonna swing in with the Garden Grafter and the Lab Wrecker. Seismic is going to trade the Lab Wreckers, but take 1 from the Garden Grafter. Okay, so with 5 mana here, can run out Mecha Dragon, or could just run out Cyber Savant as a blocker, and then hold up Incandescent Rain. Yeah, okay, he's going to do that. He's just going to run out the Cyber Savant. Let's see what is uploaded. A Sea-Soaked Cliffs. So if you're Seismic, do you just download it? Okay, no. He's going to hold up the Incandescent Rain. Cyber Savant is also a reasonable blocker for now. So now, Plipster can't really use the Switchflit as long as the Cyber Savant is around, and these Gene Gorgers can reuse the Garden Grafter and Gene-Shifted Warblers, but what you really want to pick up is Lab Wreckers with this Gene Gorger. I'm not sure what Plipster could do is drop a Mana Confluence, dash out the Evaldi's Masterpiece and grab a Gene-Shifted Warbler with it, and then try to dig deeper for another Lab Wrecker or a Mercy. Because Mercy essentially functions as Labwrecker's copies 5 through 8. So Plipster is not going to do that, just going to run out the mountain and then swing for 3 with the Gene Shifter Warbler and Garden Grafter. Interesting that Seismic is just going to take it all. Main 2 is going to pay 5, hard cast Evaldi's Masterpiece. On end, Seismic Lawns is going to cast the Incandescent Rain. This kills the Gene Shifter Warbler and debuffs Evaldi's Masterpiece and Garden Grafter, but I don't know if it was worth doing that. I don't know, I guess maybe Seismic felt that because he had open mana, might as well. Okay, so Seismic has a few options here. Can run out either the Shimmering Dunekite or the Mecha Dragon, or can Find of a Lifetime and use it as like a draw 7, essentially. For now, I guess it's going to run out Shimmering Dunekite. It can block and kill Evaldi's Masterpiece, and also swings in for 4 here. And then next turn can probably just keep running out these 5 drops. If Seismic ever really needs to dig for something, can Find of a Lifetime. Plipster hitting a second switch flit. Yeah, now this is now I understand why Seismic dropped that Incandescent Rain. Because without Evaldi being able to attack, Plipster is in like a real bind. I mean, Evaldi can still attack. It's just that it only gets 1 attack in before dying. What Plipster can do is Gene Gorger, bounce Evaldi's Masterpiece, recast Evaldi's Masterpiece next turn. That might just be too slow. Especially with Seismic having the Mecha Dragon in hand. If Seismic hits another untapped land, Seismic just plays Mecha Dragon as a hasty 5/4, swings for 9 next turn, and then kills Plipster in 2 turns. Okay, he's going to swing in with the Evaldi, and then going to pay 2, grab a switch flit. Plipster chose to grab the switch flit. Anyways, Seismic blocks the Evaldi's Masterpiece with the Shimmering Dunekite. Main 2 is going to play 2 more switch flits. So I guess the plan is just army of the switch flits, hope that Seismic doesn't have another blocker, and then try to switch flit into something good. The problem with switch flit is just random. Anyways, there's a 6th land I was talking about. If you're Seismic, I think you run out the Mecha Dragon, give it haste, swing in for 9, and then you kill Plipster next turn so you don't care about anything else. Or actually, wait. Oh, actually gets a hasty copy of it from the Shimmering Dunekite. And then can swing in for lethal because this is 14 damage, and then Seismic Lawn sacrifices Cyber Savant to give it +1/+0. I completely forgot about Shimmering Dunekite's static creating a copy of the token if you a hasty copy of whatever creatures you cast from hand. But yeah, that was crazy. Seismic just dealing 15 damage in a single turn. Okay, getting into game 2 here. Seismic again has kind of a slow hand. Doesn't have any plays until turn 4. Meanwhile, Plipster's going to run out the Gene Shifter Warbler. And again, really hoping to hit a Labwrecker. And there it is. It does hit the Labwrecker. In 2 turns, can poke Seismic Lawns and shoot one of his lands. And since Seismic Lawns is on the draw, he won't be able to play one of these 4 drops before that. Does have the Witch again though, so can just Witch, copy Labwrecker, shoot a land. And I guess Seismic's hope is, as long as I can get to 6 mana and resolve full automation, there are very few games I can lose. Plipster going to swing in for 2 with the Gene Shifted Warbler. Then main 2 drop the second Dangerous Territory. Meanwhile, Seismic is going to keep hitting lands, which honestly, with the full automation in hand, is not that bad, especially with when one of them is a fetch land. Now this turn, I think Plipster runs out Labwrecker, and then next turn can run out a Jabaya. That puts him reasonably far ahead. Yup, here comes Labwrecker. Is going to shoot the Ancient Shelter? I don't know why Plipster would do that. I think it would be better to shoot the Ritzy Parlor, because then Seismic is down at least 2 colors. Also, Seismic not cracking the Sprawling Coils on end is kind of suspect to me. Okay, can hold up the Incandescent Rain here. but doesn't have much else. Meanwhile, I think if you're Plipster, you just run out the Jabaya. Yeah, swing for 5, and then run out the Jabaya. And then Jabaya threatens lethal next turn while also grabbing you a land. Unfortunately, Seismic does have the Incandescent Rain. Oh, is he actually instead gonna Amphin Vigilante? And use it as a combat trick, buff up the Lab Wrecker? Because if Plipster plays the Amphin Vigilante instead, then that'll be 2 creatures that survive the Incandescent Rain. Okay, he's gonna run out the Jabaya, grabbing another land, and once he does this, Jabaya threatens to transform into a 3/3 with Indestructible, and also to potentially kill Seismic Lawns the next turn. But unfortunately, Seismic is going to run out Incandescent Rain, killing Jabaya and the Gene Shifter Warbler, and putting the Lab Wrecker down to a 2/2. Plipster did fetch a Draconic Crevice with this Jabaya, so that does function as additional reach. Seismic, though, is gonna, I think it should get, is gonna copy Lab Wrecker with Witch of Shifting Waters and shoot the Draconic Crevice, preventing Plipster from having that. Ooh, is Plipster gonna shoot his own hired hit, or is gonna hired hit his own Lab Wrecker in response? That is a smart play, yeah. He's gonna hired hit his own Lab Wrecker in response, which has nothing to copy, so on ETB, so it just dies. And thus Plipster gets to keep the Draconic Crevice. So yeah, Plipster's gonna transform the Draconic Crevice into Lazacolo. Does have to sacrifice 2 lands to do so, so it's gonna sack both of the basics. It's definitely a scary additional threat. And right now, interestingly, because Plipster shot the colorless land earlier, Seismic can't run out the Eradicator engine to kill this Lazacolo. Can Shimmering Dunekite, though, swing in for, yeah, it's going to Shimmering Dunekite, swing in for 4 with the Hasty Token, and then can hold up Shimmering Dunekite as a blocker for Lazacolo. Unfortunately, though, I think if you're Plipster, you just Blazing Offerings, shoot the Shimmering Dunekite, and then swing in for another 4 with the Lazacolo. And is going to use Lazacolo's trigger to sacrifice a land, create a dragon token. Seismic holding on with 2 life here, but isn't looking good, because even being able to cast an Eradicator engine doesn't save him. Has an Eon Overwatch, though, that is... No! Oh, doesn't have the mana to cast the Eon Overwatch, because he doesn't have, again, double colorless. So yeah, Plipster shooting that colorless land really did come in handy nearing the end. So yeah, we're going to a game 3 right here. Okay, so getting into game 3, kind of a whack hand for Seismic to keep, because Royal Domain is his only color-producing land, so can't turn to currency. I guess he does have the Eradicator engine once he draws into a 4th land, but it's definitely kind of tenuous. Meanwhile, Plipster has the Lab Wrecker, which is basically all you ever need in this format, and top decks into a Jabaya. So as soon as Plipster hits a 4th land, this game is looking a lot scarier. Doesn't have a turn 2 play, though. It's just going to have to wait to run out this Garden Grafter turn 3. Unfortunately, Seismic also not hitting 4th land. Does have the Royal Domain, though, and it's going to be using its fixing mode to cast Currency. Going to grab a treasure token right there. Next turn, at worst, he'll be able to cast one of these Eradicator engines, or Shimmering Dunekite, or Find of a Lifetime. Meanwhile, Plipster's still not hitting a 4th land, just going to run out the Garden Grafter, uploading a hired hit. Hired hits are very good versus these Eradicator engines. And that's an Essence Scatter that is, once again, not an actual good spell. And unfortunately, if Seismic runs out this Eradicator engine, he will have to shoot his own treasure token. So I think Seismic could run out the Shimmering Dunekite, but then you do know that your opponent can hired hit. Oh, and makes the mistake. Doesn't use the treasure. So the Eradicator engine has to shoot the treasure and not the Garden Grafter. So I guess we're doing a little takesy-backsies from Seismic there. Is gonna instead run out the Shimmering Dune Kite and swing with the copy. So he's going to swing in for 4. Plipster does have both Hired Hit and Blazing Offerings here, so it's not that bad. And Currency and Seismic is still cut off lands. So I think if you're Plipster, you probably just go Sprawling Coils, Labwrecker, shoot the Royal Domain. Seismic no longer has access to colors of any sort. And then you can Hired Hit the Shimmering Dune Kite at your leisure. Yep, is going to Labwrecker, shoot the Royal Domain. And now Seismic is in a real bind, because he knows that Plipster can just shoot... Ooh, but has a Witch of Shifting Waters, which is still uncastable, because Seismic doesn't have any mana. So yeah, he's going to swing in for 4 with this Shimmering Dune Kite. Yeah, I feel like should have just Find of a Lifetime the last turn. Oh, but it doesn't grab land cards. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. So yeah, actually never Find of a Lifetime would have been worse. So yeah, Plipster's just going to cast the Hired Hit to kill the Shimmering Dune Kite. Then can run out the Garden Grafter to extend his board. Oh, and uploads another Labwrecker. Gonna swing for 4 damage, but yeah, if Plipster hits another land next turn, just drops a land, downloads the Labwrecker because of Garden Grafter's ability, plays Labwrecker, and shoots one of Seismic's only lands. And meanwhile, Seismic continues to not draw lands. Seismic is getting so mana screwed here, it isn't even funny. And yeah, Seismic's just going to concede at that point. Definitely not how you want to see a game go. On one hand, that is the risk of playing a very greedy mana base in a format with Labwrecker. But the additional mana screw on top of that was just painful to watch. Still, we did get to see Seismic pull off that really cool Shimmering Dune Kite plus Mecha Dragon combo game 1. So I think both players got to show off the strengths of their deck to some extent. Plipster with the Labwrecker and the Evaldi's Masterpiece. Seismic with the strength of the Shimmering Dune Kites. Anyways, until next time, this is Caillou signing off.